Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is your Reluctant Gringo back again with another video. It's occurred to me that movie reviews are something that I love to do, but they are becoming rare lately because of the writer's strike and the lack of content being produced. There's just not much to talk about anymore. In reality, there are more conversations about trailers and actual films over the past couple of months, but I still wanted to continue to bring you movie reviews. Then I remembered, I'm old. Well, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to know that there are a ton of movies you've probably not seen or only heard about, or you're not aware of them at all. So to supplement this channel's movie review content, every Monday I will post a review of an older movie that will hopefully give you a reason to rent it, stream it, or at least consider putting it on your watch list. Now, it's no secret that I have an affinity for films made in the 1970s. I believe that it is one of the most important decades in all of movie history and continues to influence movies today. With that, the film that I have chosen as my inaugural retro movie review is 1971's The French Connection. Made on a budget of $1.8 million, this film grossed $52 million worldwide. Now, in today's financial world, that $1.8 million would be a budget of actually $14 million. And that $52 million would be just over $400 million. So maybe there is something to small independent films being a better investment today. So let's begin. The synopsis of the film is the portrayal of two real-life NYPD detectives as they chase down one of the largest pipelines of heroin coming into the United States. Yes, this movie is based on the real case files of the time. Yes, the villain in the film is a real person, and the existence of such a large heroin supply chain was, in fact, a real thing too. But that's not what makes this movie great. Sure, it is one of the greatest detective thrills in the history of cinema, but director William Friedkin, who would go on afterwards to direct The Exorcist and To Live and Die in LA, wanted the film to also be about the two main characters. Now, spoiler warning for this review and that, I won't exactly give you the ending, but I will inform you that yes, the movie won the 1972 Oscar for Best Picture, Best Director for Friedkin, Best Actor for Gene Hackman, who credits the film for giving him a career because before this film, Hackman stated himself he was always going to be second banana at best. It also won for Best Cinematography, Best Editing, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Sound. Roy Scheider of Jaws fame was also nominated for his role as Hackman's partner, losing to Ben Johnson in The Last Picture Show. In the film, Hackman plays real-life detective Eddie Egan, and Scheider's role of Buddy Russo is based on real-life detective Sonny Grosso, both of whom have parts in the movie. And that is something to think about when watching this film. A lot of the real-life police officers that work the case are in the film, either as characters or extras. The famous scene where Popeye Doyle, Hackman's character, rousts a bar full of African Americans for drugs, all those extras in the bar are cops. The French Connection is famous for a lot of things, but the one attribute it always receives is that it is gritty and real, and the persona of Popeye Doyle is the ultimate example. Doyle is a bigot, a racist, a misogynist, and he is unapologetic about these traits, as well as being obsessively rabid about catching the bad guy any way he can. Now, Hackman almost quit the film because his character had to use the N-word and other racial slurs, as well as rough up other actors in scenes where the brutality of the New York police of the time was necessary to the narrative. Hackman's just not that type of person. He was uncomfortable with it, and he didn't think he was the type of actor that could pull that off. In fact, the director Friedkin didn't want Hackman for the role. He wanted another actor, but the studio forced him on him. Both actor and director clashed often on set, especially since the shoot was almost always outside, in the frigid colds on the streets of New York City. It was an unpleasant environment to everyone. But Hackman also credits this with being able to give the best performance, being pushed by a director, being pushed by the elements, being pushed by his own internal conflict within him as to whether he could actually perform this type of character who he found personally repulsive, but also had some redeeming qualities. And Hackman's turn as Popeye Doyle is one of the greatest acting performances in the history of cinema. And if you haven't seen it, believe me, you'll think the same thing after you have, and if you have seen it, you already know what I'm talking about. Now, Popeye Doyle was a bigot, a misogynist. The language used in the film is raw. There's no other way to put it. It's raw, it's uncensored, it's unfiltered, it's unapologetic. It is what it is. It is the person that he portrayed, and disagree or agree with the decision, Disney, when it acquired the rights to the film in 2023, re-released it with footage cut from the original to eliminate the racial profanity. Some see this as blasphemy of the art. Others see it as changing with modern times, and you'll certainly have your opinion if you view the unedited and then edited version. In reality, my opinion is this: the detective that the film is based on is a real person. If a film is going to depict real events, then give it all to me. I want the bad, I want the good, I want the downright ugly. I think we all learn a better lesson about ourselves through art when it is unfiltered, and we see it raw and exposed instead of sanitized. Besides, for me, the N-word is ubiquitous in a lot of pop culture nowadays, especially music. So it just does not make any sense to water down this character, because I think it takes the impetus away from the audience to decide what is appropriate and not appropriate. But enough about that in that soapbox. The French Connection contains one of the earliest and most intense car chase scenes ever put to film. Sure, nowadays there is CGI, better visual effects to do all sorts of crazy stuff with cars, but when watching the French Connection car chase that involves an elevated train on the streets of New York City, remember these things. 1. They didn't have permits to do this, but off-duty cops and assistant directors cleared and blocked off 5 to city blocks to get the filming done at 75 to 80 mile per hour. Number 2, they did not have permission to run the elevated train the way that they did, sometimes in the wrong direction. So the transit official that let them do it without permits or authorization requested $40,000 cash and a one-way ticket to Jamaica because he was sure he would have been at least fired and at worst arrested when word got out. Number 3, Hackman drove the car himself a lot of the time, and when things needed a stunt driver, Friedkin was in the back seat holding the camera himself because, according to him, all the other camera operators had wives and children. And number 4, there is a shot where Hackman's car collides with another in an intersection, and Hackman's vehicle slams into a steel support for the elevated train. This is a real crash. By that I mean the cops and assistant directors may have shut down the street, but people still lived there, and they still needed to get to work. So unbeknownst to these locals, who would just get up and start driving to wherever they needed to go, they were actually driving into an erratic, high-speed film set filled with mortal danger. Now decide just how epic this car chase is, knowing what you know now about how they got it filmed. It's also no secret Friedkin was not a fan of the book the movie was based on and did not want to do a simple crime story. He wanted to make a film that also had a documentary feel to it. So before production began, Friedkin would go on ride-alongs with the NYPD detectives and witness the kind of drug busts and questionable tactics the police would use at the time. One night, he entered a bar with a detective who gave Friedkin a loaded .38 and told him to guard the back door while he went about his routine. After that, Friedkin set up ride-alongs for Hackman and Scheider, who credit these times with helping build the incredible chemistry that you see between them as partners. Now, this is where Hackman also learned the famous line about picking your feet in Poughkeepsie. It was part of the good cop, bad cop routine where the good cop asks you normal questions until the bad cop just jumps in and starts screaming ridiculous, nonsensical questions that freak out the suspect so much that he's happy just to get back to answering the normal ones to the point of just incriminating themselves. In almost every police activity you see, from the Santa Claus disguised drug bust to the scene where Hackman is trailing his suspected drug kingpin in the subways, is taken from actual police record and performed as it happened, right down to the little wave the French drug dealer gives Popeye Doyle as the subway train departs. Now, the ending of the film is famous for the moral questions it poses about deadly force, as well as its ambiguity. Some of you may know the true story and history of the French Connection, so I'll not get into it here. But it is an ending that leaves you sitting in your seat for a few moments, just pondering the obsessiveness of over-dedicated police, the use of force, the drug trade, and the toll it takes on society. And ultimately, you're left with a snapshot of life in early 1970s New York City, where it was anything but a dream or a fantasy, where life was harsh and crime seeped out of every nook and cranny of every building and every alleyway. It was a tough time, a raw moment in American history, and through some of the greatest acting, directing, and writing you will ever have the opportunity to experience, The French Connection became not just a cinematic masterpiece and achievement, but also a historical marker for a time when life in America's most celebrated city was at a turning point on the societal scale. And there you have it. One of the greatest films a lot of you may not have seen, so if you're looking for something to watch and just can't take another night of spending hours undecidedly scrolling through Netflix, give The French Connection a shot. Believe me, you won't be disappointed. And that's what I think. And let me know what you think. And also, let me know if there's a movie from that same era that you believe is worth sharing with others. I'll be back again next Monday with another retro movie review. Until then, make sure to check out the other content on this channel. Since it has grown, I've decided to make a more consistent schedule of what I post and when I post it. I'll leave the details to that in the description below and on the channel's main page. Thank you for watching, and from south of the border, I am still your reluctant gringo. Salud, and I'll wave out.